COVID-19 variant. It's actually the most recent. It's definitely not the last. And the Food and Drug Administration, just about a half hour ago, just approved a fourth shot, a second booster for both Moderna and Pfizer. So if you're over 50, get in line right now. Call your pharmacy and make an appointment. We'll get to that with Dr. Feigelding at the bottom of this hour. In our second hour, Charles Sauer is going to drop by to debate that tax increase that Joe Biden's talking about that I'm going to get into in just a second. Also, is Oregon going to become an assisted suicide tourism hotspot? Maybe. Well, I'll fill you in the second hour. It's fascinating. This was a court case, a federal court case. Also, will Manchin's, in our third hour, will Joe Manchin's corruption be his legacy? Increasingly, it's looking that way. And he's kind of moderating his, hey, I'm the big guy here, stuff. And I think it's because of these stories coming out. I'll tell you about that in the third hour. This is an absolutely shocking story. Also, the boring bill in Tennessee we should all be watching exposed. This is the last gasp of the fossil fuel industry, but it's really bad news for Memphis. And it's spreading across red states all over the country. I'll fill you in the third hour of the program. And also in the third hour of our program, an historic moment. And good news for Canada. Ontario just struck a deal with the federal government to get funding for $10 a day childcare across the entire province. And Trudeau is trying to take this countrywide. Is that up next for the United States? We'll talk about that in our third hour. But to start out, this possible cover-up, the White House call logs finally made their way to the January 6th committee. There was all this, Trump saying, oh, no, it's covered by presidential executive privilege. And 7 out of the 8 Supreme Court justices said, no, it's not. The president gets to decide what's covered by executive privilege. And the president is Joe Biden. And he said, hey, it's fine with me if those White House records get turned over. Maybe this is why Trump tried to steal these things from the White House and took them down to Mar-a-Lago. He did, steal 15 boxes of highly classified documents, a clear felony. If you or I walked into the White House and walked out with even one page of a highly classified document, we could spend the next 20 years in prison. Donald Trump instead is bragging about shooting a hole-in-one. But the Washington Post is reporting that these logs turned over to the committee show a gap of 7 hours and 37 minutes. It goes from 11:17 a.m. to 6:54 p.m., which is pretty much exactly during the time that Trump's gang and all these right-wing militias were trying to murder Mike Pence and murder Nancy Pelosi and stop the counting of the election so that Donald Trump could declare a coup and a state of emergency and stay in office. The committee has also been interested in the use of burner phones by people in the Trump orbit. The Stop the Steal rally folks were apparently using burner phones to communicate with high-level people on Trump's team, including Trump's family and Mark Meadows. Trump just came out and said, I don't even know what a burner phone is. Right, if you believe that, I have a bridge to sell you in Brooklyn. So there's that. And how do you think that's going to turn out? Right? When the 7-minute gap on the White House tapes was revealed, Rosemary Woods did this photo shoot for the Washington Post where she had one finger on her machine and her foot way off on the other end of the room touching the foot pedal that would, so she could hold down the record button while she was hitting the play foot pedal. And nobody believed it. Nobody believed it. I mean, it's just, and who's going to believe that, oh, gee, there's a 7-hour gap in the 7-hour, 23-minute gap in the Nixon, in the Trump tapes. But the op-ed that I wrote today for the Hartmann Report is titled America Must Choose Between Great Wealth and Democracy. And it's about this budget report that has been put forward by President Biden, his budget proposal. There are a couple of major things. First of all, he's dropping the deficit from 12.4% of the nation's overall economy last year to 4.8%. That's a massive drop in an annual deficit. Keep in mind, this is the deficit, not the debt. But nonetheless, the deficit is every year. The debt is the whole cumulative thing. His at the top of all of this, to cut this deficit, is this 20% minimum tax on income for people with assets over $100 million. And And I mean, here's the story on how this works. If you're really rich, if you've got over $100 million, then and you don't want to pay any income taxes, what you do is you take your $100 million and you invest it. You know, we have professional investors who work for you, and whether the market is up or whether the market is down, rich people make money. You know, they average anywhere from 5 to 30% a year. If you look at the big hedge funds out of New York and the investment funds, or look at Berkshire Hathaway. Pretty much the only way to get in on this game, if you're not super rich, is to buy Berkshire Hathaway B stock, which is, probably a really good idea and would have been for years and years and years. But anyway, the way that rich people get around this is they don't take an income. Jeff Bezos last year took an $81,000 income from Amazon. So he only paid income taxes on $81,000 in income. So how did he shoot himself into outer space? How does he have all these mansions around the world? How does he have a luxury yacht? How is any of that possible? Well, he's got assets worth hundreds of billions of dollars, or $100 billion anyway. And so what he does is he goes to a bank and he says, I want to borrow against these assets. And so he borrows, say, $50 million this year, pays 1% interest on it. He gets a super low interest rate. It's a totally secure, pays 1% interest on it, which is a hell of a lot better than paying, 36% income tax. And then he lives off that money. I mean, rich people just don't have income. They live off their investments and the unrealized gains. I mean, he hasn't even sold the stock, so there's not even a capital gains tax. There's no tax whatsoever. So Biden says, okay, if your assets went up, you're going to pay 20% tax on the increase in the value of your assets. And if they go down, you can recover that. So already, well, the headline over at Raw Story was, fuming billionaires issue profane denunciation of Biden's new minimum tax plan. Yeah, you think? But there are really three reasons why it's really important to have relatively high taxes on very profitable corporations and on morbidly rich individuals. Number one, low income tax. These are all kind of, the damage that low taxes, ever since Reagan, and then the Reagan tax cuts, and then the Bush tax cuts, and then the Trump tax cuts, have just, I mean, this is why Jeff Bezos pays nothing in income taxes for all practical purposes, less than 1%. Low income taxes at the top encourage oligarchy, where politicians become mere frontmen for great wealth and democracy is left in the dust. Low income taxes at the top. Number two, low income taxes at the top encourage an explosion of wealth among the already morbidly rich, accompanied by a collapse of the middle class. And number three, low income taxes at the top deprive government of the revenue it needs to maintain the foundations of life for small businesses and working class people.